Welcome back, everyone, to this special edition of the Below Average Joe's MMA podcast. Not special because of anything content wise, this is your normal weekend recap. However, special because this episode is taking place from our mom's houses. So,
Yes.
what's that's for some reason the song My House by Flo Rida is going through my brain, but instead of
It's a
My
good
House,
one.
it's Welcome to Mom's
Mhm.
House.
Yes, I like that a lot.
So straight from Mom's basements here for me and Dom. You can see the white woman decor
Hmm.
in the background. Dominic's still rocking the MMA decor
Yes.
like he's a college student hanging up posters in his dorm room.
Damn right.
Um, Dominic, we just had a very interesting weekend of fights, capped off by an amazing UFC fight card, one that tied for the most KOTKOs on a single card in UFC history. And then kind of before that, we had a PFL card where it started out great, but it
Yeah.
kind of
Yes.
crash landed by the end there.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on this MMA weekend as a whole? Is it overall a positive or is it a bit negative when you consider all the factors?
I think the positives still outweigh the negatives, and really that's large in part due to last night's UFC Fight Night card in Austin, Texas, because it was absolutely when you're feeling a fight hangover after a fight night, you know it was a good weekend of fights. You know what I mean? It's one thing when the pay-per-views happened like last week for 275, but this one really kept that momentum and went right into it again. So it was an awesome weekend of fights. PFL again, good and bad. We're going to cover all of that, obviously. UFC, I don't know if there was anything bad last night. It was just such an amazing card.
Yeah.
And, it's weekends like this, really back-to-back weekends, why I just love this sport so much, Noah.
You literally text that in our group chat. You just, at the end of the main event, as soon as the bell rung and the main event was over, Dominic just texts, I love MMA.
Yes.
But also, this is a special episode because we're recording this on Father's Day, Dom.
Very true.
Me and you do not fit the bill, but we do have a couple of dads in our lives that deserve a lot of love and respect.
Yes.
Big Dave, I'm sure will be rocking some sleeveless tee
Yes,
today with
yep.
some slides.
You know him so well. That is literally what he's going to be wearing.
Gym shorts. He'll probably have those. I don't know what type of sunglasses he wears, but he wears like I think they're like white, and they have like the lens are like. I don't know what you would call that. They're like a multicolored lens.
Yes, you are spot on right now. Are you sure you're not living here when I'm not here?
I know him so well, dude.
Yeah, true.
So, Dominic, what are your plans today for the big Father's Day? I guess I'll just throw out there. I have two fathers. No, not in that way. I got the main squeeze, Big Todd, and then my stepfather, Rob. Shout out to them today. But Dominic, what plans do you have for the big Father's Day?
We're going to be doing some gifts, I think, when we're done off this recording. We're doing an early morning recording 2 weeks in a row. I love that. But we're going to do that. We're going to have a little pool shindig, some family coming over. We're going to have Dad's on a kick right now. I think he's found his favorite thing to do on his griddle outside. Street tacos for the second time.
Me about this.
Yeah, second time in 2 weeks, 3 times this summer. I think he found his niche, so we're doing that.
Awesome. Yeah, that should be fun. I am taking my dad to none other than Bob Evans when we get done here. My grandma, his mother, is going with us. A great woman, but she is an elderly woman, and something about elderly people is they don't love loud noises. So we were originally going to go to Roosters. The classic Midwest wing joint that, those of you anywhere else in the country may never have heard of. Best wings in the world. But since she is going, we're going to a more, a place that she can actually hear us and not get aggravated. So Bob Evans it is, my dad's choice. So I'll be meeting him there when we get done here.
Bob Evans on a Sunday, man, it just hits a little bit.
Yeah, and we're trying to beat the post-church crowd plus beating the Father's Day crowd. It's going to be, going out to eat on Father's Day, on any of these type of holidays. It's a bloodbath, It's
literally.
But we're going to make it work. So shout out to all the fathers out there. If you're watching this show and you are a father,
That's right.
shout out to you. Hope everybody has a great Father's Day, even though I guess we're releasing this episode the day after. But
True.
with that being said, Dominic, I do want to give you a chance to plug our social media before we hop right into today's episode.
Yeah, of course. So if you can see our pretty faces, that means you're watching on YouTube. Be sure to drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell. You'll never miss an episode if you do it that way. If you're listening on audio, follow us there. Give us a rating if you can. It helps boost the algorithms and boost the podcast up the charts. For social media, look above my head at BAJ_MMA podcast for Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And lastly, for us personally, you can find me at DSlee14. You can find Noah at NTBaker_. Let's get into it.
Let's do it. So let's start with the main event for UFC Austin from the Moody Center. This is, of course, the new arena that University of Texas. It's University of Texas has put in. Horns up.
Yeah.
Is that what they say? Is it horns up?
Horns up, I think. Yeah.
God, I'm like, I need to freshen up on my Texas knowledge, I guess. They just
insert Matthew McConaughey here.
Haven't been relevant in college football in a long time. So, anyways, sorry about that. UFC Austin.
Yes.
We saw Josh Emmett rise to the occasion. He gets the split decision victory. This main event does go all 5 rounds over Calvin Kattar. The biggest win of his career, Dominic. I'm going to give you a chance here to give your thoughts on the fight. Anything that kind of jumped out at you as you were watching, anything that was good or bad or in between about the fight. And maybe to get the discussion rolling, I will ask you how you scored the fight personally. A very close encounter. Obviously no robberies here, but a 48-47, no matter which way you had it, seemed to be the theme for most journalists and, of course, the 3 judges themselves. So just, I'll open the floor to you.
Yeah, I remember going into the championship rounds, round 4, I actually had Emmett 3-0. So for me, it did come down 3-2 Josh Emmett. I think he did get the win. And, man, I'm just going to be honest. Like, while I expected a fun fight and it did play out, on the feet, I think a lot of people expected that. I didn't expect Josh Emmett to hold up so well with Calvin Kattar's volume as the fight went on. And yes, while I scored 4 and 5 for Kattar, it wasn't like landslides. Like round 5 was still really close. Round 4 was the most decisive for Kattar for sure. But dude, like Emmett was right there the whole time. He was doing so much more than just the one punch power looking for a knockout. He was putting together combinations. His shots just seemed to be doing a tad bit more damage, at least in terms of the impact. We know that Kattar dealt damage visibly to Emmett's face, and he's done that a lot lately in his fight. So it was just such an amazing fight. Calvin Kattar has went the distance, Noah, 4 straight times in 25-minute fights. The octagon time is just racking up for him. And for Emmett to be able to stand in there for 25 minutes and do it against someone who's so experienced in it now, it was awesome. It was a great fight. Going from last week's fight of the year contender, this one now joins the short list of them. It was amazing. Everything you could have wanted from those 2 guys, I feel like, was what we got.
I'm surprised that we're in agreement on the scorecards. I actually had it the same way, 48-47, Josh Emmett. Again, no robbery here. Just, figured we'd just put it out there, kind of how we scored it. There was a lot of people who scored it for Calvin Kattar. There was a lot of controversy about especially one of the 3 judges' scorecards, Chris Lee, a personal favorite. This is the guy who scored Paul Felder, the winner of his fight with Rafael dos Anjos. I don't even know what's going on there.
Yeah.
But he gave the 4th round to Josh Emmett, which, like, when you put it in that perspective, like, you just feel kind of like I felt so great about the main event, and then it's like 2 minutes later I see the scorecards and it just like brings me down a little bit, just a little bit, because I'm just like, man, that 4th round you couldn't score for Josh Emmett. So you're telling me if that had been flipped, then all of a sudden Kattar's the winner? Like, it just, I don't know. I hate when that shit happens, but I'm not even going to talk about it because I feel like it's such a boring conversation to have anymore. Like, the judges are going to suck.
Yeah.
We just have to get over it. And I mean, people want a solution. Good. You've be my guest. Give me a solution. I ain't got one.
Please, yeah.
So until then, I think a lot of I think we've had our fill about judging.
We just have to live with it.
Yeah. As for the main event, because there's a lot to talk about here that actually is interesting and is important. Josh Emmett, I mean, biggest one of his career. Dominic, I got to say, I was so impressed, and I was prepared to say this when because this fight really did play out like exactly how I thought it would. I thought Kattar might have more volume. I think he definitely picked up in the later rounds.
Yeah.
But it seemed early the difference maker, at least in our opinion, was Emmett just was landing just as many shots as Kattar, but had much more power behind those shots. So once Kattar picked up his volume in the later rounds, it started to accumulate an effect on Emmett's face. But just too little too late, I guess, at that point, once you lose the first 3 rounds, in our opinion. However, for Josh Emmett, I was very impressed with his performance. He called for a title shot. He called for the winner of Max Volkanovski. And I'm prepared to give it to him, Dom. I know that there is a pretty important main event coming up, UFC Long Island, Yair Rodrigues, Brian Ortega. Those are 2 guys that I could see the UFC favoring to give a title fight to, just because they might have the kind of style of fight that... I mean, Josh Emmett's a very exciting fighter, but it just seems like name value-wise, those 2 guys are... Ortega especially, but Yair even might be a little bit higher.
Yeah.
But I can't say that it would be... like a travesty if he didn't get a title fight off this, but I do think it warrants one. I think this kind of performance against this kind of fighter in Calvin Kattar, he rose to the occasion. He showed that he could do it for 5 rounds. We already knew he has the one-punch power, probably the biggest power punch in the division. I think it's an interesting fight. It's a matchup that is fresh for either man who wins that title fight come July. Obviously, maybe I might change my mind once the title fight takes place. If Max wins a close decision, we got to do a 4th fight. If Yair or Brian starch the other, all of a sudden they're like looking real pretty, and I'm going to be doing that meme where I'm like got my arm around Emmett, but I'm looking behind a pretty old T-City or Yair,
Yeah.
But I want to get your thoughts on that. Do you feel, when you walk away from this main event, did it feel like, you know what, Emmett does deserve a title fight? Or is it a bit like, well, maybe he's ready for a title eliminator?
Yeah, I'm all for him getting a title fight. I mean, this is 5 wins in a row. It's a fresh matchup. He's doing it, against good guys now in this division. I think a win over Calvin Kattar says a lot about how good you are at featherweight right now. So really for him to get it, I think it does just come down to the scenarios. So it's like, well, if Volkanovski wins and Ortega wins, or, he might be a shoe-in because we've already seen that fight less than a year ago. But, if Holloway wins and Yair wins, that's another good scenario for Josh Emmett because those 2 have already fought each other. So, there's just so many moving pieces that I think there's a way for Emmett to slide in there without having another fight. I get this feeling that he will have to probably still fight one more time. But if he were to get the title shot for the winner in July, I'd be all for it. I mean, again, 37 years old. He's never been there before. What's the trouble in getting him to it now? He's on the biggest win streak out of all those guys, regardless of the name value. So if you want to do it off that, then he does deserve it. So
it feels like it's now or never for Josh Emmett. And again, this fight, part of me is kind of happy he won, and it's not because of any sort of favoritism I have towards him over Calvin Kattar. I love both guys, obviously. I think so much respect for both of them and for what they bring to the octagon each time out. But I feel like Calvin Kattar has so much left after this fight that it's a small setback, but he'll be back. For Josh Emmett, though, it really felt like if he didn't get this nod, then he was never going to be in a title fight.
Yeah.
And for me, it's just kind of capitalizing on what you have right now. Now, again, a lot could change. A couple weeks from now, that title fight takes place. Who knows what happens? Who knows what's going to catch our interest after that, after UFC Long Island. But I want to try to open it up now and stand firm that I would love to see Josh Emmett get that title fight. I think he's earned it.
Yeah.
You've seen him win fights every which way. He's been able to knock people out cold like Michael Johnson. He's went into wars with Shane Burgos where he didn't come out the same. And also he had an affair like this, which was a bit of a technical war, but showed that he's not just a brute. You know, he does carry a lot of precision behind his strikes.
Yes.
I guess I kind of lost my train of thought there, so I was trying to get it back. But we can talk about Calvin Kattar for a second while I try to gain back whatever it was that was in my brain. For Calvin Kattar, tough loss, right? You know, you come so close. Some people think you won the fight, you did enough. Come up short. Coming off the heels of what was a huge, big comeback for him to start the year against Giga Chikadze. If you're Calvin Kattar, where do you go from here? What kind of matchup do you look to get next? Considering, by all accounts, I mean, he's still a guy that feels like he should be up there for Comeback Fighter of the Year this year. Like, just that Max defeat was just, I mean, you don't get a much more demoralizing loss than that one.
Yeah.
And to bounce back the way he did against Chikadze was great. He comes up just a little bit short here. This shouldn't set him back too far, but like, should he look to go back a little bit and rebuild himself just a bit, take a bit of a slower approach to getting back in the title hunt?
Well, I saw a call out last night on Twitter, Noah, and I really liked it. And it was the 16-0 number 10 ranked Movsar Evloev that called out Calvin Kattar. I think that's a good fight. I think it is that step back, but not too far because Movsar is just that damn good after his last performance. But I think that makes sense. Just give Calvin a step back. He has been fighting all of these top guys right now within the top 10. So just one little step out because that's kind of where he is now anyway. If he is going to lose to number 7, he's going to bump back there. So what's the shame in fighting an undefeated number 10 fighter? If you stop that hype train, you're right back into the contender status again after one win. So I really like that call out, and I'm going to stick with it. And I really like that for what could be next for both guys.
That's a dangerous fight too for Calvin. You know, he's done a really good job in his UFC career of staying on his feet.
Yeah.
But I don't know if he's really fought the kind of wrestler that Movsar is. And that would be a great test. I kind of remembered what I was going to say now after my very awkwardly long pause. But I'll actually just double down and agree with you on Calvin Kattar. What I could totally see, depending on what happens with Yair Ortega, the loser of that fight, and Calvin Kattar getting matched up.
Yeah. I
just don't know if that's what I would prefer. Like, don't get me wrong, if it got announced, that's a bigger fight, right? You know, but part of me just thinks that, you know, Calvin still could really make something of himself in this division.
I think so, yeah.
I just worry that if he loses to another top-ranked guy,
it makes it hard.
It makes it a little harder because then once you climb your way back, all of a sudden you have a lot of rematches you have to try to convince people to take, and easier said than done.
Right, exactly.
Now back to Josh Emmett for a second. I saw Ariel Helwani among them, but a few people throwing out the idea that he would get in a title eliminator bout with Arnold Allen. Arnold Allen, 9-fight win streak, has the biggest win streak in the division, I believe, outside of Volkanovski, I guess. So, Arnold Allen, we haven't really heard much from him since what was a fantastic, one of the top performances of the year at UFC London against Dan Hooker. But what do you think of that as a potential title eliminator matchup? Does it feel like two guys who are both kind of stuck on the outside looking in, so it's not really a proper title eliminator, or is that the kind of fight that we should be clamoring for?
You know, I like that fight better than the one that Arnold's been calling for in Korean Zombie. I like him and Emmett a lot better. I forgot he has been
calling for that, yeah.
I just think there's much more implications on that one. It's a 5-fight win streak versus a 9-fight win streak, a seasoned veteran versus still a super young guy in Allen. Even though their records are actually insanely similar, Josh Emmett just has one more fight. I think that would be, if Emmett's not going to get a title fight, I see nothing wrong in that. And I don't care what numbers say next to their names, because it would probably be 4 versus 6. That, honestly, to me, would feel like more of a number one contender fight than Ortega Rodrigues, simply because those two have already fought the two guys fighting for the title, if that makes sense. So
yeah, a part of me wants to see, like, and this is a whole lot of, if you don't give Emmett a title fight right away, or if you don't give the winner of Rodrigues Ortega title fight right away. Like, let's say there's a gap in time. Maybe Volkanovski wins, but then he goes up to lightweight or something. Who knows? Part of me almost wants to see Arnold Allen and Josh Emmett take on two of these guys that have been up there for a while. Almost like you see Josh Emmett take on the winner of Rodrigues Ortega, while Arnold Allen take on, maybe if Max were to lose that title fight, maybe he takes on Max. And that way you have a chance of building two, like, fresh title contenders.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at the same time, you also risk losing two fresh title contenders.
Very true.
So you either place them against one another, and then for sure one guy's going to come out looking like the fresh squeeze, or you take a chance with both of them, putting them in separate matchups and chance them both losing. But
yeah.
It's an embarrassment of riches in this division. So I really don't think that there's a wrong way to go here.
And that's a great problem to have.
Yeah, it is, because, like, of course I'm trying to, side with Josh Emmett, but I'm not going to act like the winner of Rodrigues Ortega I'm not going to be excited for if he gets a title fight.
Exactly.
And same with, like, an Arnold Allen. If Arnold Allen gets a title fight, I wouldn't even be upset.
Yeah.
We'll talk about this fight a little bit more maybe when we get into the betting side of things. But, Dominic, let's talk about our co-main event. And I guess this would be a good time to mention that we did lose our original co-main event for this card.
It's true.
For the second time in as many months, Donald Cerrone versus Joe Lauzon falls off at the last second. First time around, Donald Cerrone getting, like, some sort of food poisoning maybe from some street tacos. I don't know what... Hopefully your fate is a little better.
Yeah.
But then here with Lauzon, it was reported he missed the ceremonial weigh-ins, and it was reported that he was having cramps.
Yeah.
Turns out that's not true. Apparently the UFC put that out there just to kind of protect him, because what really happened was he just had this kind of freak injury occur after his weigh-in. He goes to put his socks on, and his knee completely locks up on him, and he couldn't move it. Couldn't walk on it. Couldn't bend it. So he basically had to hop on one of his partner's backs to get out of there, because he's like cowboys in the room. All these fighters are in the room. I mean, could you imagine, like, sitting there and being like, I can't move?
Yeah, that's fucking weird, man.
So he said eventually, I guess around the time the card started, he was able to get that movement back in his knee and leg, which we're thankful for. Glad to see that he's okay.
Yeah.
He said it's an issue that's happened to him a couple times throughout his. I guess he's had. He said both legs. He's had some sort of. I forget what he said now.
Some sort of repairs.
Meniscus issues or something. I forget what it was, but because of that, he said it's locked up on him a few times throughout his. Well, I guess last few years, but he said usually you just kind of
shake it out.
Yeah, you shake it out and you're good. He said this time that didn't happen, but he was around the time of the card starting. He was good, and I just imagine, like, if this were like 25 years ago, like, the UFC might just be like, all right, you guys are still fighting.
Yeah.
But obviously, with the commission and them notifying them that the fight wasn't take place, probably not going to happen. Dana did say in his post-fight presser that he will not rebook this fight.
Yeah,
he just feels like it's like, probably what's the point? They gave Cowboy the option to have a fight in July, but Cowboy said he wasn't wanting to make that cut again, which understandably, it's already a brutal cut for him. So we likely won't see Cowboy back until, like, the fall at some point. And then for Lauzon, I don't know if we'll ever see him back. I mean, he just, he was already hadn't fought since 2019. So kind of a damper for that, especially because Cowboy in Texas,
It's just unfortunate.
Yeah. But what we did get rose to the co-main event spot was Kevin Holland and Tim Means, Dom. And call Big Mouth because Kevin Holland, 2-0 as a welterweight. He gets the second round submission of Tim Means, Dirty Bird himself at 1:28 seconds in. Your thoughts on Kevin Holland at welterweight, Dominic? Is he a real threat?
Oh, I think he's really good, man. This is his weight class. We wanted it for so long, and we've gotten to cover Kevin Holland so much on this podcast because he fought 5 times in 2020. So we've talked about him so much and how we have been interested in 170, and he has made it look so good thus far. Not necessarily perfect. I mean, he's getting hit a little bit. He's making them fun. But at the end of the day, he's really putting statements on the way that he has won against Cowboy Oliveira and now Tim Means, the Dirty Bird. So I think he needs to get a top 15 opponent next. No more, playing around. No more tit for tat. Put him into the top 15. Honestly, I don't even care who it's actually. I do care who it's against.
Did you hear his call out?
I heard he wants to fight Sean Brady, which is a sick fight. Is that what you're pointing
Yeah, that's
toward?
what he said.
Yeah, that would be a sick fight, but I think Sean Brady deserves to fight up. I think he's undefeated all the way up there at number 9.
It's fair.
Kevin Holland, Michelle Pajera, thank you very much. That's the fight to make.
That's a funny one, Dom. That's a good meme fight right there. Kevin Holland looked great. No surprise. Tim Means looked good, actually.
Tim Means did look
good. It's interesting that Kevin Holland, I think his potential is still, sky high.
Yeah.
And some people might look at like his first 2 fights here and they might kind of poke holes in Tim Means had some success, Cowboy Oliveira had some success, but both those guys are high action fighters, man. They really go for it. And for Kevin Holland just to kind of not even really weather any storm, but he just sort of he played with them a little bit in the sense of he played their game. He went tit for tat for a while, but the hand speed, Dom.
Whew.
I mean, he has some of the fastest hands in this
He is very
division.
powerful too, man.
Yeah, I mean, susceptibly so.
Yeah.
A lot of that being because of the reach. I mean, that reach advantage definitely worked him a lot of favors here. Even though Kevin Holland's big problem is he doesn't really fight long. Like, he actually gets into a pocket quite normally. But at times here, he showed a little bit more willingness to play the reach advantage. And it worked to his favor. To get that submission win, you do most of your work on the feet, but then you get a nice, was it an anaconda choke?
I feel like it looked like a Darce, but they call them Bravos now. I thought they were Darces, but yeah.
So he got that choke on, you get the whole package right there, right?
I think people forget how good he is on the ground, actually.
Well, he's a jiu-jitsu black belt, so, everybody looks at his ground game as being weak, but that's more the wrestling. It's different.
Yeah.
His submissions are very strong. The wrestling's been the issue for him.
Right.
I'd like to think he's made some improvements. Is it enough to where I'm welcoming a Sean Brady fight next? Maybe not.
Yeah.
I think that's I do kind of agree with you that Sean Brady, I kind of want to see him take on a Wonder Boy or somebody like that.
Yeah.
I can't deny though that it's a sick fight for Kevin Holland to take on Sean Brady.
Yeah.
The Michelle Pajera fight's interesting. Michelle Pajera just against anybody is so interesting because he's 28 years old, but he looks 52.
Yeah, yeah.
But he's also he's got the body of the Liver King. The dude's fucking massive.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know, but Kevin Holland, great stuff. I mean, he's a superhero. He saved the third.
Yeah.
What was the story behind this? Did you read any of it?
The night before the fight, Friday night, after weigh-ins, him and his team went out to get waters and stuff from a liquor store that was close to the area. And there was a guy running down the street that had stolen perfume from, I guess, a store or something. And people were like, hey, come back here, blah, blah, blah. Kevin Holland saw that happening, sprinted and tackled the thief and got the perfume back from the guy. He is just he's just there. He's in the right place at the right time. But the thing is, with Kevin Holland, he's not afraid to go fucking do something about it, man. He is really like a miraculous person. All the stuff you hear about him doing, this is like the 4th or 5th time this year. Then it's only June that he's had something like this go on. It's crazy, man.
He's literally Batman.
Yes. It's crazy.
It just kind of cracks me up that it's Kevin Holland of all people. Like, the guy who is one of the most active fighters in the whole company. And meanwhile, at the same time, he's taking on fights in the street, too.
Yeah, it's
protecting the streets,
We've never really seen anything like this in the UFC before, ever.
No, and he's still committed, Dom. He's still trying to fight 5 times this year. That means he'd have to fight 3 more times.
Yeah, I think he said he wanted August or September, and then 1 or 2 more after that, or something. Yeah. I mean, so it's crazy.
He's trying to shoot for 5 this year. Another contender for comeback fighter of the year, Kevin Holland, 2-0 for this year.
Yeah, he had a rough
2021.
Yeah.
So 2-0 this year, though. I think that's a pretty good start.
Oh yeah.
More on this card to come, but let's move over to the PFL, Dominic. They had a card on Friday. Week 4, light heavyweights and the lightweights. We got our playoff standings mostly finalized outside of one Anthony Pettis, who Dominic begrudgingly has to recognize is not on the same card as the rest of his division.
Love that.
So here are the playoff standings as it sits now. We'll just go ahead and go through who's in the playoffs for each division. We'll start with light heavyweight. Robert Wilkinson. So I guess it's going to be 1v4. So Robert Wilkinson going to take on Dylan Monte. And then you have Omari Akhmedov taking on Antonio Carlos
I like
Jr.
that a lot.
I mean, Dominic, tell me isn't that the fight right there that's probably going to determine the winner of the whole season? I mean,
the way it looks.
Robert Wilkinson's looked real good, but Akhmedov, Carlos Jr., 2 guys that are UFC veterans that have a lot of high-level experience, and Antonio Carlos Jr., of course, the champion from last season.
Yeah.
That's a great fight for whenever that does take place.
Oh, I love that fight so much.
And meanwhile, for lightweights, we've had a lot less finishes, so the score totals have been that kind of adds a little bit of intrigue, though, because it means like you get one big finish and you might be the number 1 seed. Yeah. Anthony Pettis is still listed as the 1 seed with his first-round finish in his first fight. So that shows you the kind of difference in score totals, because I think Robert Wilkinson had 11 points in his number 1, and Akhmedov had 11 points as well. Number 2, Olivier Aubin-Mercier. Technically, they're tied for first, but I believe Anthony Pettis has that 1 seed locked up no matter what.
Because it was a finish, yeah.
I believe so. Even if he loses in his next bout with Stevie Ray, I believe he still holds on to the 1 seed.
Yeah.
So OAM, the Canadian Gangster, at number 2. Number 3, our main event winner, Alexander Martinez. Him and Clay Collard had a hell of a fight. We'll talk about that in a second. But it was a good main event. Alexander Martinez edges it out. That means he gets the 3 spot. And number 4 right now, Dominic, is last season's winner, Rosh Manfio. Had a disappointing loss to OAM.
Yeah.
And he does sit at number 4. Now, there is one caveat to this. This is not finalized because Stevie Ray still has a chance, Dom, to get into the playoffs. Can add a lot of intrigue to his bout with Anthony Pettis coming up soon. If Stevie Ray gets a finish, it's going to be at some point in round 3. There's going to be some sort of time. But basically, I'm going to word it right here that he must finish Anthony Pettis by the end of round 2 to overtake Manfio. I know that's not technically the case. I believe it's somewhere in round 3. But adds a lot of stakes to that fight.
Very much.
For Stevie Ray, who actually lost his first round matchup. So this is big for him.
Yeah.
So that's where we sit. But Dominic, we'll talk about a little bit about the fights that took place. Let's start with the main event. Alexander Martinez, he edges out Clay Collard. Clay Collard, though, I mean, never in a dull fight.
Never.
Despite the fact that his record in the PFL is probably nothing too special, because it seems like he kind of wins one, loses one.
Yeah.
A lot, but he probably one of the bigger stars in the PFL. Like, he's one of the bigger attractions to watching their cards. Your thoughts on this fight?
Yeah, it was a hell of a fight. I mean, 2 main events for a reason. When you talk about him being kind of one of their stars right now, he's getting these Showtime spots, and yeah, it was a very good fight. It was a very razor close fight. super, just like his output and volume is insane. He just does not stop. But Martinez, to be fair, was weathering storms. Granted, he was getting hurt. I felt like the biggest moments went to Collard outside of in that second round. Martinez locked in a deep rear naked choke that a lot of other people probably would have tapped to or went to sleep to, but Collard somehow fights through it and then smiles right afterwards to his corner. It was crazy. So round 2 was the closest. I mean, round 3 was close too, but in terms of like round 2, Collard dropped Martinez and could have had a finish. Martinez put Collard in a choke and could have had a finish. So that was just like the craziest round. But I felt it was a 2-1, maybe even still 3-0 for Clay Collard on my personal scorecard. So it is unfortunate because there was a lot of kind of controversy in this. And even for Martinez, it's unfortunate that a lot of people don't think they feel he deserves to be in there, which is always tough to deal with after he was in such a great fight too. But yeah, I mean, I felt after I watched it that Collard should have gotten his hand raised.
Yeah, so, I mean, are we going to say he got screwed here? I mean, he just got screwed. In a sense, he did. Whether or not you feel like, we're not calling the fight a robbery. Because, again, you lose sight of what that word really means when you use it too much. But I think to say he got screwed is pretty clear because now he doesn't get the fight in the playoffs.
Yeah, that part
doesn't have a chance to compete for a championship. And that I think that means if he's still under contract with the PFL, he's on the shelf until like a year from now.
Yeah, which is just awful. And they'll probably just use him as like an alternate, basically, if someone misses weight. And it's just like, man, come on.
That's the only downer to kind of the PFL's format is just that, like, that's why I kind of would like to see a few more cards scattered about.
Yeah.
You could have your season, but then just have a few, like, keep people active, you know?
Yeah. Because, like, are you going to put Collard on, like, a prelims, you know what I mean?
Or if you don't have the financial ability or don't have the want to do more cards, at least give your fighters the freedom to kind of compete elsewhere in the off season. You know what I mean?
True.
Easier said than done, I'm sure. But to me, this main event, it was just a shame. Because, look, it was a hard-fought main event. Martinez fought his heart out. Him being more the natural grappler here, he did have an advantage there. He locked in a very good submission. Clay Collard looked great on the feet. Boxing looking crisp as usual. It ended up being a really fun fight. It's just a shame that the wrong guy got his hand raised. That's just what it comes down to. Yeah. I'm not going to call it a robbery. But when you had so much at stake here, like literally if both guys made the playoffs, I wouldn't be complaining that much.
Right.
Because we've seen that when – was it no, that was in the playoffs when Rory got screwed last season.
Oh, with T-Bow? Yeah.
That was in the playoffs, right, when he got screwed?
I think so,
because that's what made it so annoying.
And then T-Bow didn't even fight in the finals, I don't think.
Okay, well, regardless, it just – the fact that you don't get to, like, make up for this, like, now the judges just got it wrong, and because of that, Clay Collard's season's over.
Yeah. When
he was the hottest thing going in the PFL, like, it's just such a limp dick ending to this season for him, and that's such a shame.
It is. It really is.
If you're Bellator or the UFC, you better be hitting up Clay Collard's line immediately.
Yeah, there's nothing.
This guy has proven what a commodity he can be, and the UFC made the mistake. They had this guy under contract and let him go without even giving him a fight, I'm pretty sure. So one of these promotions, get off your ass and sign this guy because he needs to be on some of these cards. Like, he should have been on UFC Austin.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
I love the PFL, but again, like, this is the PFL at the end of the day is not the major leagues here. Let's be clear about that. So bring him on up.
Yeah.
Any other fights on this card, Dom, that kind of what were the big fights that stood out to you? Anything in particular? Anybody who, you know, either rose to the occasion to secure a big win to get into the playoffs, or maybe anybody who kind of failed to do so and now will be sitting at home watching the rest of the way?
How about Omari Akhmedov, man? A guy that was never even that bad in the UFC, but just kind of faltered in the fights that he needed to win the most. But he's come over here to Bellator, to PFL. He's 2-0 in the season. He's going to be in the playoffs. I love so much that he's fighting Antonio Carlos Jr. because it is the same boat for him when he was in the UFC. So I think that's a stellar matchup. And Akhmedov came back from behind in that fight against Theodoros and put him to sleep with that arm triangle choke in the second round. So that was just kind of like the finish that stood out most to me, and the fact that got him to the point where he's going to fight Antonio in the first round of the playoffs to get to the finals. I love that that's how the cards played out for those guys.
Yeah, one thing that stuck out to me, the prelims were great. A lot of
Very
first-round finishes, but then the main card was just so dull.
Yeah, it was.
And, you had good fights on here. I mean, the main event was good. We already mentioned that. But, like, Rosh Manfio, Antonio Carlos, or not Antonio. Rosh Manfio, Olivier Aubin Mercier, downer.
Yeah, not a great
Antonio Carlos Jr., Brucey Soto, downer. Yeah. Jeremy Stevens, who did he fought?
Miles Price.
Miles Price, thank you. That fight, not that great.
Weird.
Not that great.
Yeah.
Weird fight. Jeremy Stevens may have gotten gifted a decision. I didn't really score it, so I don't really swing one way or another.
Tough weight cut for Jeremy too.
Yeah, he had to cut off the hair, cut off the beard, made him look older. By the way, he was looking his age a little bit here. Didn't fight great, and he's probably the big disappointment here, right? Because he came in with a lot of expectations. He loses his first round matchup with Clay Collard, but it's one of the fights of the year.
Yeah,
it is the fight of the year for PFL.
Yes.
And then you follow that up with this sort of lackluster fight where you get your hand raised, but ultimately it was just a decision victory, not nearly enough to secure you a spot in the playoffs. So now his season's over.
And in my opinion, that's why the PFL made that matchup too, because I felt they were giving him Miles Price, a guy that was like 11-8 or something going into it. He's been finished a couple times. Like, I think they wanted Jeremy to get the finish and then to have a lackluster performance, probably partially due to maybe a tough weight cut.
I think
he's getting
the tough
older.
Weight cut for
he's
sure.
Done it for so many years, man. Like, at some point, you just. But you know what? He hasn't won in like how many years? So it's regardless of how bad the fight may have been, at least he's in the win column.
Yeah, if he would have gotten a loss, I would have wondered, because like same fight, but just the judges scored it for
Miles.
His opponent. I wonder if we're having a different conversation, just because
we could be.
Because really, a lot of people didn't score it for him, from what I saw online. I didn't score the fight, again, just to be clear, but it seemed like a lot of people thought he lost his fight. So,
but then again, now, like you said, kind of with Clay Collard, Jeremy won the fight, but he's not in the playoffs. So now what? You brought in this big signing for the year. Yeah. The big signings for the PFL have not went well. Like, they didn't go good last year. Anthony's could potentially pay for it this year and make the playoffs, but still, man, it's just like, in the grand scheme, it's not went definitely how they wanted it to, at least.
Yeah, very true, very true. Let's move on to the fight announcements, Dominic. We do have PFL action this week as well, so we'll have more to get into. The heavyweights, and I forget who else is with them. Is it featherweights?
Featherweights, yeah.
Because they put Rory and Kayla on the same card, right?
Right. So well, and then Pettis will fight this week too in the one-off, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay. Great. So we'll obviously get into that on Thursday. But as far as some fight announcements, we do have a couple of big ones. The Bantamweight division dominating the fight announcement talk this week. Bantamweight title, Dominic. This is, where do we start here? Do we start on the fact that this is the fight the UFC is pushing for, or do we start that there might be some road bumps potentially to stop this fight from happening? It looks like what the UFC want to do here is they want to put the Bantamweight title on the line. Aljamain Sterling taking on TJ Dillashaw. UFC 279, September 10th. No location yet. There has been a rumor that the October Abu Dhabi card could be moved up to September. But then also this might just very well be like a card in, I don't know,
Vegas or something.
Because then there's also the rumor that Nate Diaz is going to be on this card that I saw going around. So.
Oh, alrighty then.
Yeah, because apparently him and the UFC are working through their shit. Now we don't know what the matchup's going to be for Nate, but
just getting somebody.
Yeah. So, anyways, this is the title fight that the UFC want for their September 10th card. Now, I put this on here with the intention of just talking about this like as if it's a fight already made. But Dominic, Aljamain Sterling, our Bantamweight champion, had some comments about...
Oh, no. Really?
Oh, you didn't know this?
I did not know this.
Okay, so you're in for a fun
This is genuine reaction here. Yeah.
Yeah, you're maybe I should pull up the tweets just so I can
Pull them out, the receipts.
Yeah, I want to get this right because basically once people started passing around that this fight was being rumored and whatnot, he came out and said, well, this fight's not made yet. And let me see if I can... While I'm looking for it, I do want to just get your quick thoughts on this. A lot of people thought Jose Aldo should have been the one getting the title fight. But assuming that this fight does end up taking place, and we'll get into that, is this the right title fight in your opinion? Or do you feel like TJ maybe hasn't earned it or whatever?
No, this is the fight. This is absolutely the fight. Listen, I know, guys, TJ got suspended, PEDs, yada, yada, yada. Well, listen, he was the bantamweight champion. He never lost that belt, and he didn't pop for PEDs in a bantamweight fight. It was a flyweight fight. He is one of the best bantamweights of all time. He came back after a 2-year layoff and beat Cory Sandhagen in one of the best fights of the year. He absolutely deserves this fight. When you look at kind of what he's done in this division. Him versus Aljo is also just such an incredible stylistic matchup. But then again, at 135, there are no bad stylistic matchups. So I love everything about this fight. No, we're going to talk about another bantamweight fight after this. The whole bantamweight top 10 is booked with fights right now, except for Petr Yan. This division is set on fire with not a match, but a fucking flamethrower, and it's awesome.
I completely agree, and I'm having trouble finding the tweet, so I apologize. But I will still tell you the Spark Notes version here. But no, I agree. Look, I get why people don't want TJ Dillashaw in this spot. There's a mixture of factors. One, they don't feel like he beat Cory Sandhagen. But in my opinion, that shouldn't matter because the judges scored it for him. That's what you go off of.
Yeah.
Like, it was so bizarre when Aldo got a title fight coming off a loss against Petr Yan.
Yeah, but no one says nothing about that.
Yeah, a lot of people thought Aldo won the fight.
Yeah.
Against Marlon Moraes, that kind of got him the title fight. You get what I'm saying? Like, I didn't like when the UFC did that. Like,
yeah.
It was just... Even if the judges score a fight terribly, you just go off of that. That's ultimately what matters. That's who scores the fight. That's who matters. So just go off that. So, okay. You don't think that TJ won the fight convincingly, whatever, not enough to earn title fight. But also, the EPO, of course, what he got stripped of the belt for in the first place. He was suspended 2 years. A lot of people feel like he shouldn't be able to, in their words, like waltz back in, win a fight, and then he's already back in the title conversation. I disagree. He earned that fucking victory against Cory Sandhagen.
Yeah.
Like, regardless if he should have won it, if it was, if you scored it for him, he fought on a one leg really for a vast majority of that fight. It looked good doing so. Very close fight against one of the top guys in the division. And as far as the steroid or EPO argument, I don't like that he did that, but he got his punishment was the 2 years that he was suspended for.
Yeah.
Let's be clear that he didn't lose his title to anybody. He got it stripped. He relinquished it.
Yeah.
So, of course, he should come back in. He wins against one of the top guys in the division. I think it's perfectly justifiable to give him the title fight.
Yep.
And now, if we want to argue, does Aldo deserve it more? Does TJ deserve it? I don't have the facts in front of me to kind of make that clarification. But let's not pretend like Aldo's getting screwed here when he was gifted a title fight not too long ago against Petr Yan. So just a little note I wanted to put out there. But basically, Dominic, why this fight may not be happening or what it's worth. Once this was going around, Aljamain's like, well, not so fast. This fight is not signed. He believes that in order for this fight to get done, for this fight to get signed, he is in need of a bump in his pay. He said going from competing for the belt to now as a champion, there is apparently no bump in his pay. Basically, he said he feels like he embraced being the villain in the build-up to his rematch with Petr Yan. He thought he did the company a solid in like kind of the way he promoted that fight. So he feels like being a company man should earn him
a little bit more cheddar.
Yeah, a little bit more cheddar. and basically he doesn't feel like that's what he's got yet. So in order to get the fight done, that's what he wants. Do you think these demands are maybe? Is he being a little unrealistic, or do you think that this is something that maybe he should be asking for?
No, I mean I get it, man. Like everybody wants more money in the UFC, especially when Aljo's been in the UFC a long time. He's got a lot of fights. He's always been against top competition. Now he's at the top of the mountain. He is the top dog in this bantamweight division, and he did it decisively in that fight with Peter Yan, by the way, too. So,
true.
I'm all for everybody getting more pay, and if he's calling for it, then he does deserve it. He's the champion. I would imagine most of the hiccups come because he's already on a contract, so that's why he would still be getting the same money. But again,
I think so. Yeah,
we're not on the back office as much as we wish we were, and that we could see all the details.
I wish I knew all these details because we're business guys. We love this stuff, but I think that's what makes us so. There's so much pause to even speak on it for us because we understand
there's so much
maybe that how much can go into some of these contracts and business dealings, and it's not as easy as just, well, here's your bump.
Here's $1 million,
It's just not really how it works. And I think most fans get that, but I also think most fans just, I think I think there's reason to, nobody's above, what's the word, criticism.
Right.
So, I think the UFC you can throw criticism their way for sure. But I also think that, there's a reason why, even with the criticism, nothing's changing and nothing is really being. People, as long as people are willing to fight for a price, they're gonna fight for that price, and that's the price they're gonna get to fight.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like you can get mad at the UFC all you want, but at the same time, it's like the fighters are the one taking the fights, and you can argue that maybe. Yeah, there's a lot there, right? You dig deep, and it gets really messy.
Can of worms.
Yeah. Now, I will say I agree. Aljo, you're the champion. Nobody thought you were going to beat Peter Yan that second time. You went out there. You did it. You did it decisively. All respect to him because he did take a lot of unfair shit in the lead up to that fight. And I mean, during the fight, all of it. Even after the fight, like he's taking some shit.
Yeah.
And it all stems from literally taking an illegal knee to the face.
That wasn't his fault.
Yeah. That's what's so crazy how this all started. But here he is. I've again, anything he can negotiate for himself, I will happily support him doing so. I want him to have that leverage. But I will say that I did kind of roll my eyes at the whole, like, I thought I was being a company man, and I was playing up being the villain, and I thought the company would kind of pay me back for doing that or whatever. I don't know if he's just saying that because now that's what he wants and that he's trying to, like, make his case, or if he really believes that, though. I mean, what in the history of the UFC or of any company has told you that they're a corporation out of the goodness of their heart is going to make it worth your while because you promoted a fight a certain way for them, or because you fought a fight a certain way for them? That's not the way this business works. It's not the way most businesses work. We can argue if it should be or shouldn't be or whatever, but I kind of rolled my eyes at that part because I was just like, really? Like, you really thought you were going to get, like, everything you wanted because you, accepted being a villain against Peter Yan, and I don't know. I think that part's a little bit kind of roll my eyes at that. But again, whatever he can get, whatever he can leverage as the champion, all in support of. That's the game here, man. At the end of the day, you got to make money. You got to set yourself up for your future.
It's prize fighting.
Future. Prize fighting, exactly.
Yeah.
Next one, Cory Sandhagen. Speaking of the devil. Woo! He's ranked number 4 now in the division, and we had kind of hoped that Cory Sandhagen might take a step back. He might kind of just remove yourself from the immediate
kind of the Calvin Kattar situation.
Remove yourself from, like, the immediate title picture. You lost to the likes of Dillashaw, Yan, and Sterling in the past 2 years.
Yeah.
So even though we know Cory Sandhagen is that guy, it's just he's lost to 3 guys that in mostly competitive bouts.
Yeah.
But he gets his next matchup, It's against Song Yadong, number 9 in the bantamweight division. Yadong coming off of the biggest win of his career with the knockout of Marlon Moraes, sent Moraes into retirement.
Yes.
This is looking to be the main event of September 17th, a week after that potential title fight at UFC 279. What kind of stakes are in this one for Sandhagen and, of course, for Yadong?
Yeah, so we wanted Sandhagen to take the step back. He is, but in order to maintain relevancy, you still have to win. So that's what's on the table for him. And for Song Yadong, man, I mean, you're fighting a top 5 guy that a lot of people think is going to be a champ one day, including myself. So, yeah, for him to come in and potentially beat him, it's a huge deal for Song Yadong, a guy that is still so young. He's kind of, leading the charge in that Asian market. Him and Zhang Weili have been the 2 most successful that we've seen thus far. And to do it in this division, 135 pounds, man, if he goes in and beats Sandhagen, that's a huge deal. Puts him right in the talks for a title. I love that they're giving this a 5-round shine, by the way. Again, we're looking for storylines. We're looking for fights that make sense. Mm-hmm. This fight makes sense and checks boxes for a main event fight. Song Yadong's first, by the way, in the UFC as well.
His first main event, which I'm happy. I think it's earned. And for Sandhagen, this would be his, second few. Was TJ the first main? Or no, he had the main event with Marlon.
Yep.
So I think
TJ was the main event.
I think it'd be his third main event. Yeah. So it's kind of interesting that Cory, who at one time was kind of the wonder kid in a way for this division, now he's sort of the veteran here as far as experience, high level experience in the UFC, and he's welcoming the youthful Song Yadong. Song, by the way, ESPN put him as their number 1 fighter under 25 years old. So,
yeah, man.
So young, so good at this point, but still developing. He's got powerful hands. He competes out of Team Alpha Male, who are known for their wrestle boxers. Now, we've mostly seen him do it on the feet, but I wonder if he's got good wrestling behind all of that as well. So, I think it's a very interesting matchup. It's the kind of matchup I wanted Cory to take on next. Not an easy fight by any means, but it kind of gets him out of the weaves of the true proven contenders right now and gives him a new challenge.
Yeah,
and that should be an amazing fight, September 17th. I really don't know how that one's going to go. That's great.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's get into the rest of UFC Austin. A lot of fights to talk about here. There was a lot of finishes. Every finish got a bonus.
Yes.
On this card.
Applause for that, by the way.
That's back-to-back cards that the UFC did that. So
make it commonplace. Every week,
that's
make it commonplace.
I would like that to be what you do for the future. Instead of having to choose between the bonuses, just give every finish a bonus. And I know me being just give all the money to all the bonuses. I don't know. I'm just saying that I feel like the UFC's at a point where they could afford to, throw out.
And it incentivizes it more. Because when you're going into a card, you know that a performance bonus is on the table, but it's all right, what do I have to do? How hard am I going to have to go? But if you're giving it to everybody that gets a finish, then it's all right, this is what I need to do. This is my goal.
It feels very achievable.
Yes,
at that point.
Exactly. And then of course they did a fight of the night too, so which is even better. They did that and 9 bonuses. Let that money flow.
The fight of the night went to the main event that went the distance. So a lot of people getting extra money on this fight card, which is awesome. Joaquin Buckley, Dom, gets the TKO over Albert Duraev. This happened at the very end of the second round. It was a doctor stoppage, I believe. Yeah. The left eye of Albert Duraev looking... You couldn't even pretend you could see out of that thing. No, That's how bad it was. There was no pretending. There was no covered the good eye and how many fingers am I holding up? It was just, you can't see. Okay,
it was pitch black. No vision.
Yeah. So Joaquin Buckley, a big win for him, Dominic. I want you to kind of grade his performance, and then I think it's time we reevaluate, the potential of Joaquin Buckley. What kind of ceiling do you think he truly has here in the UFC?
Yeah, man. So I think his ceiling, even more so now than after that amazing knockout of the year in 2020, is higher than it's ever been. He's won 3 fights in a row, and I feel like he is just improving with every fight and rounding out his skill set. It wasn't a perfect performance last night against Duraev. He was missing a lot with his strikes. At one point, I think he was like 6 of 45. He closed that gap in the second round. That's where he really started putting it all together. But his takedown defense was great. When he did get taken down, he was able to get back up. These guys were former training partners, so there was actually some beef that I didn't know about for this fight. So they had kind of been there and felt each other before. So you could tell that they had like chemistry in the cage, and Buckley was able to get up and do what he had to do. Again, when he lands, it's just so powerful, so impactful. I really do think that he's just such an athletic specimen. Too, with his build and what he can do inside of the cage. He was still throwing spinning shit and jumping knees and kicks last night. Granted, they weren't landing, but the threats are there for those highlight reel finishes on top of regular combinations and whatnot that he does. So I really do think like we have a top 15 competitor in Joaquin Buckley. I don't necessarily know if he's going to be like a contender or a title holder, but I really do think he can hold us all in that top 15 area and maybe even crack into the top 10 one day. I'm not ready to write him off. He's young, in his prime. I like what I'm seeing.
Yeah, this was definitely a big positive performance for him. I'd probably grade him somewhere around like a A minus, B plus range.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
the only knocks on him being just the accuracy of the strikes was kind of hit or miss, so to speak. I think this fight said a lot more about the limitations of Duraev, who I am a big fan of, but Duraev just struggling to get the takedowns, which says a lot about Joaquin Buckley, his takedown defense, and then once the takedowns were secured, he got right back up. So a lot of positive takeaways for Buckley, but man, some of those strikes were just so looping and just not finding homes for a lot of those. He tried to throw some of those crazy kicks, like what knocked out Impa Kazaganai, but just whiffing on him pretty hard. He's lethal, man. He is. Like when he's at his best, he can knock your lights out, but also, man, he can fight a pretty smart fight. I think the improvements in Buckley have been mentally.
Yes.
I think I've seen that more with him than any sort of physical improvements. He's already a physical freak. He's been a physical freak for a long time, but mentally, his fight IQ has seemed to improve a lot. He seems much more aware of where the strengths and disadvantages lie for him in every given fight, and I respect that. Like against Al Hassan, he was more willing to take that fight to the ground, not trying to get into a dick-sized contest and throwing just bombs at each other.
Cardio's looking better too.
Cardio did look good. I think he would have held up pretty well in round 3 if that had happened. But I do think that what's holding him back is kind of, honestly, like as good as his power is, his striking and as fun of a striker as he can be, I do think it kind of holds him back a little bit. Like but despite the improvements to the fight IQ, I'm not seeing those improvements in any sort of technical ability in the strikes. Like he's kind of I'm going to compare him to a baseball player that we probably are familiar with because we're Reds fans. He's Adam Dunn. He will hit bombs.
Yep.
Home run or strikeout. Home run, walk, or strikeout. That's all Adam Dunn did.
Yep.
But he was awesome. He's great.
Yes.
Joaquin Buckley, a bit of the same. He gets the knockout blow. He can fight a smart fight. He can take a walk.
Yeah.
But also, you're going to get a lot of strikeouts with him. That's kind of the way I look at it. As far as the ceiling, top 15 might be that's generous.
Yeah.
Because this is 170 pounds, right?
Oh gosh, it's 170 or one. I think it's 185.
I think it is 185.
Yeah. Not the deepest division,
not the deepest. For 185, if it was 170, I'd say no. But for 185, there's probably a chance. Like he could probably compete with like the Brad Tavares types or even we mentioned Michelle Pereira, right? So or Michelle Pereira's 170.
That's welterweight. Yeah.
God, man, Michelle Pereira looks fucking huge.
He's massive. Yeah.
But yeah, like a Brad Tavares type, I think he could compete with a guy like that, and that's in the top 15. But I don't think he's like I think top 15 would be the best ceiling for him. I don't
Yeah.
see him. I don't see much higher than that.
Yeah.
But
Until proven otherwise.
It's a big bounce back considering we kind of wrote this guy off after what was an amazing 2020 knockout over Kazaganai, and he followed it up with another knockout that was pretty vicious against Jordan Wright. But then he started 2021 with a head kick knockout loss to Alessio De Chirico.
Yeah.
We kind of wrote him off, but he's bounced back, 3 straight wins. Who's to say he doesn't keep surprising us, you know?
Exactly.
I mean, who knows? Maybe down the line, that whole video with him and Hamzat and Darren Till, maybe he eventually gets that fight.
Comes to fruition. You never know.
Yeah. Next up, Gregory Rodrigues and Julian Marquez. We looked at this fight as like a 50-50 fight, but RoboCop just went rock'em sock'em robots and put away Marquez. 3 minutes, 18 seconds of round number 1. Any regrets with the Marquez moneyline pick, Dom, or do you feel like did Marquez just get caught here, or was it really just is Rodriguez just that much more well developed at this point?
I actually think Gregory looked really good.
Yeah.
I don't regret betting Marquez because I really did believe in him. I still think he's
There's
a
a lot
good
of
fighter.
value. It's plus 150.
Yeah, plus 150 for guys that go in there and bang. But Marquez didn't look like Marquez. I don't know. There's something that seemed a little bit off in that fight. I mean, don't get me wrong. He got hit early, and then from there on, Rodriguez just kept hitting him. But before it got like too gone and out of hand, when it would still, could attain a win, it was like, I don't know. It didn't look like that same Julian Marquez. He's fought from behind before, though, and had to come back and win fights. So, Rodriguez, another guy like Michelle Pereira, by the way, looks a bit old. He's only 30. But and genetically just gifted.
He literally he kind of looks like Brazilian Skip Bayless. Bald Brazilian Skip Bayless. And Skip Bayless is like in really good shape, but he's like 68 years old or whatever. So, that says something.
But really, man, like RoboCop, he not in boring fights either. By the way, the Jung Park. Then he had the fight with Petrosian, and now this one. I mean, holy shit balls! This guy's in fun fights. Again, only 30. Would love to see what he can do in the future. I'm not giving up on Julian. It made me a little weary. Like, it didn't look great for him. So I want to see how he can bounce back, honestly, if he fights again this year.
All right. Opened up the main card. Adrian Yanez. First round TKO of Tony Kelley, 3 minutes, 49 seconds in. The fans were really into this fight. There was a lot of heat in the build-up.
Yeah.
Tony Kelley, a lot of people smoking on that Tony Kelley pack last night. Adrian Yanez, one of the fan favorites of the community, so you kind of had a classic hero-villain here going on. He gets it done in the first round. What's next for Adrian Yanez?
I have to give this guy top 15, man. I mean, but he took a step back. I mean, he beat Davey Grant, and then
this is true. Tony Kelley, I think, is pretty good, but I also think that you're right. I mean,
look at Davey Grant, how good he is.
It did feel like I thought Yanez had kind of worked his way to top 15 after Davey Grant. So
it has to be top 15 next. And dude, it's at 135. Like, this division is just, again, it's on fire. And this guy's going to enter in likely or fight a guy that's in that top 15. You know what? Noah, give your thoughts on this fight. I'm going to take a look back here at the back half of this top 15. Let me see here. You know what? Ooh. How about, what do I want to do here? What do I want to do here? This is
a very exciting podcast.
Well, dude, no, a lot of these guys at 135 are full right now. I don't want to be that guy to say Rafael Assunção because I think that's a little mean, but that's who's number 15 right now. I just think he deserves it, man.
Wow, Dom, you really going to go there, huh?
Well, listen, Jack Shore's fighting Ricky Simone, or I'd recommend both of those guys, so there's no one else.
It's the top 15.
Dude, no, it's Rafael Assunção or Frankie Edgar. Pick your poison. Which one do you want?
Well, are any of these fights happening soon so we can, he doesn't have to take a fight tomorrow.
Well, let's see. Simone and Shore's in July. The Munoz O'Malley's in July.
What if he takes the loser of Simone Shore, or maybe Dominic? If you don't do top 15, give him a Timur Valiev.
Ooh, yeah, just somebody right there.
The top 15 thing. I'm not saying his opponent needs to be a top 15. What I'm saying is his next win should give him a number next to his name.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. That's a good
and like you just said, the matchups may not work out. I mean, Assunção, if you're going to compete, you got to compete if you're going to stick around. But
yeah, true.
But it was very mean of you to put those two together. Now,
I know.
For Adrian Yanez, I will say the idea of him versus Sean O'Malley somewhere down the line, that fight they've kind of they played into it a little bit. So the idea of that fight in the future is just like a chef's kiss. I hope we work towards that at some point.
Yes, please.
One of my bigger surprise on the cards, the debuting Natalia Silva, who I did have a little bit of interest in only because she came in here with 5 straight submission victories, going up against Jasmine Jasudavicius, who I would say is a decent fighter. Her debut, she looked good against Kay Hansen. She won on the Contender Series, got a contract there, so she came in with a little bit of something.
Yeah.
And Natalia Silva beat the brakes off of her for 3 rounds. Her striking didn't just look good. And it's like when you see it very clearly in women's MMA, Dom. Like, we watch a lot of women's fights, and a lot of times it's a tit for tat because they don't quite carry that one punch power. Sometimes, and you'll see the women striking, and like it'll be good. It'll be very technical.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have quite the oomph behind it.
Right.
Natalia Silva has a ton of oomph behind her strikes.
Yes.
And that's basically my dumbass American way of saying that I think has a lot of potential.
She's
I love
good.
what I saw from her here. If you already come in with a heavy reliance on submissions, but you show that with your striking,
dude. Yes.
Just add her to the list of 125 people. I am all in on Natalia Silva right now. There is nobody else on this card who caught my eye like her, which is kind of crazy because she didn't get a bonus.
And this card was crazy. Yeah.
And this card was so crazy with all the finishes on it and big moments. She was like probably one of my biggest standouts of the whole night.
Oh, and I love that very much. 25 years old. She's won 6 or 7 in a row. That was her debut against a tough opponent and made it look like levels above. She made it look like it was Jasmine's first time fighting professionally ever. I mean, and Silva hadn't fought Noah since December of 2019.
Yeah, see, I didn't know that. I failed to notice that.
And then to come out and do this in your UFC debut, she was a Jungle Fight champion. Listen, hey, I may have had like a Jungle Fight fade because I had Jasmine on a parlay.
Dom was talking shit about Jungle Fight.
No more. Natalia Silva on the radar, people. You know how much I love the women's flyweights, and now Noah's talking about the women's flyweights. Woo-wee. I loved it.
Yeah, that was great stuff. And we followed that up, Dom, with I didn't see this coming. I didn't. I really didn't. And maybe this is the only way that Jeremiah Wells could have got it done. He puts Court McGee to sleep for what you said, the second time in Court McGee's career, his long career. He's had
32 fights. Yeah.
Only the second time he has been knocked out. Jeremiah Wells put him out cold a minute 34 into the first round. Dominic, Jeremiah Wells is a dangerous man. If he can just improve on his cardio, then this guy, I think you're talking real potential there too, because he's another guy more probably comfortable with his wrestling and submissions. But Dominic, he carries so much power on the feet that he's putting out Court McGee out cold. He's knocking out, I forget the guy's name now. The only guy to beat Colt, or one of the only guys to beat Colt.
He knocked out Warley Alves.
Alves.
Submitted Blood Diamond.
And that was a huge debut, by the way. Not enough people talk. Warley Alves, very good. I mean, beat Colby Covington back, a long time ago, but knocked him out. Yeah. Now, the big knock on Jeremiah Wells is the cardio. He definitely fades down the line, but man, it was only a minute 34, but 3 wins, 3 finishes. He had a Blood Diamond one, I don't know if Blood Diamond's really legit or not, but Court McGee and Warley Alves, those are impressive wins to start their UFC career. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Again, I'm not going to start saying give him a top 15 next, but
he's close.
I definitely think he's close. He has to be close.
Yeah. That's the only way to put it.
Ricardo Ramos got a first minute KO of Danny Chavez with the spinning back elbow, Dom. I believe Were you the one that put this on our Twitter? That I believe that
Yeah.
makes Ricardo Ramos gave him 2 of the UFC's
5 total spinning back elbows.
finishes in UFC history. So
And 2 have came this year. Shout out Molly McCann as well. I mean, holy shit.
there you go. There you
What's
go.
with the spinning stuff this year in the UFC, man?
Spinning back fist last week with Wei Li.
Grief. Look, man.
Yeah, talk about Ricardo Ramos because I know you were pretty high on him coming in. Now on the way out, it must be even higher now.
Dude, like, he's always been a good fighter, been in fun fights, but he's lost the big ones. But like, he's in his prime years still. This was up at featherweight. He's kind of dabbled with bantamweight a time or two before. He's big for featherweight, I thought. He looked huge in the cage last night against Chavez. I mean, obviously, there's not a ton of takeaways in terms of he got him out of there in a minute and 12 seconds. But the fact that he's got multiple spinning attacks, he's an ace on the ground with his jiu-jitsu. Like, he goes in for the kill when he fights. I really like Ramos. I want to see what he can do. I do believe in his potential. I don't know how high he can climb, but I'm here to see, be a part of that journey while we can see it.
There you go. Now, another guy, this is probably
this is performance of the night.
Natalia Silva was my biggest standout women-wise, which I know there wasn't as many to choose from there. But I'm saying that distinction because for the men, Bill Halls was the biggest standout for me. Look, Darren Wynn has had an interesting UFC career. This puts him at 2-3 in the UFC, but that doesn't quite represent the matchup we got here because Phil Halls and Darren Wynn both come from backgrounds in really high-level wrestling.
Yeah, true.
Darren Wynn, of course, kind of the protege of Daniel Cormier. Daniel Cormier really was a big reason for Darren Wynn to come to the UFC so early in his professional MMA career. DC also, I said Daniel Cormier, right?
Yeah.
Okay. DC also on commentary for this fight, so I thought he did a good job. I thought he called it down the middle. I know he gets a lot of criticism when he's on commentary for like Habib or not. I don't know if he's been on there for Habib,
AKA fighters,
Islam. Yeah, all those guys. He tends to show a little bit of favoritism. But I don't think he really did here. I think he gave Phil Halls a fair shake, and I don't see how you couldn't, because Phil Halls beat Darren Wynn from pillar to post. You got to give credit to Darren Wynn for the heart, the chin he showed here, but Phil Halls' striking.
Oh man,
looked amazing here. And now the big problem with Phil Halls is still going to be, and it's going to be this way the rest of his career, the chin. His chin is his only falling point. He looked great against Chris Curtis for the first 3 minutes of that first round. Piecing him up, looking great on the feet. And then Chris Curtis catches him. Over. Done. Knocked out cold.
Yeah.
But not the story here. Phil Halls does get it done. Round 2, 4 minutes, 25 seconds in. I mean, he did it with everything. The elbows were flawless.
Man.
I mean, Dominic, this was the biggest standout for me performance wise. Him and Natalia Silva. I mean, your thoughts on Phil Halls?
Yeah, this was one of them just cleanest in and out performances of the year. I mean, it reminded me of the Jake Matthews last week against Andre Fialho.
That's a great comparison. Yeah.
Just perfect, no flaws. He got hit a little bit, but Darren Wynn was just kind of throwing because he was so out of it. You know what I mean? So obviously you're going to get clipped. So his chin held up for what it's worth in those big shots. But yeah, I mean the attacks with the way he was throwing the elbows, they weren't just your normal like in a clinch elbow. He was at a striking distance and would step in with elbows over the top and everything. His jab was beautiful, by the way, too. He was able to fend off a couple takedowns. Darren Wynn definitely should have tried to wrestle a lot more. I don't know if I felt like once he got hurt, that kind of chalked the rest of the fight for him. But Phil Halls, sorry, I don't think he likes being called Philip. Well, it was a great performance of the night for me on this card full of standouts. It was awesome.
Yeah, apparently Phil Halls he was a former sparring partner or training partner with John Jones. Oh. And then Darren Wynn, of course, being the protege of Daniel Cormier. So it was kind of
Well, did you see what happened in the cage last night?
So you did hear about this? So
Yeah.
Apparently after the fight, in the heat of the moment, Phil Halls begins kind of throwing some words at Daniel Cormier, saying you hitched your ride on the wrong pony or something like that. And DC did kind of berate him for it. I don't know if you saw because then Phil Hall's kind of apologized. Phil Hall's a very polite guy, by the way.
He is.
So,
he really is.
So he kind of out of character, kind of goes after
Yeah.
DC. He said he felt like DC was maybe showing some favoritism during fight week, and then DC kind of was like, "Now, why do you think I do that?" He's like,
Yeah.
"I don't make fights. I don't pick fights."
Well, he literally said, "Look what just happened. Why do you think I'd want that?" Because Phil Hall said you wanted this fight for like Darren Wynn, and then this happened, and DC literally was like, "Dude, look what just happened. I don't want that to happen to any of my guys.
Yeah.
Like, don't do
Yeah.
this. Show respect." He did kind of put
it
Phil
did
in his
cra-
place.
It did kind of crack me up, though. It kind of reminded me of like an old man. Like,
Yes.
I feel like I had this conversation with like someone in my neighborhood, like an old timer in my neighborhood, when I like maybe rode my bike through their yard,
his yard.
or something.
Yeah.
And like he came out and was like, "Listen, you son of a gun!" Like that's what Daniel Cormier was doing out there. I don't know why it just made me laugh, but kind of a small footnote, I guess, on this card that took place. But once the post-fight interview took place,
was
it seemed
cool.
like all was cool, you know.
It really was a heat of the moment thing. You could tell.
Yeah, because Phil Walls, it was just so because he like completely doubled down or reverted back and was like apologizing for it. DC was still kind of letting him have it a little bit, but all's well ends well. Let's move on to the below average bet slip, Dom. We have some positive news, people.
Believe it or not.
Don't let the Joes get hot.
I hope that's the case, man. I hope that stays the
Don't
same.
let us get hot. That's all I'm going to say, Dom, because we had a big bounce back. We went positive 3.35 units. Don't pay attention to that 2022 standing. That must just be a typo. I don't know.
It's supposed to say plus 11.
But Dominic, the big takeaway here, 5-1 on parlays.
Woo! Can we... Someone comment down below.
Whose Joes are these?
Yeah, man. I'm gonna keep this approach from here on out. I'm just gonna keep doing two first.
We both retooled our strategy again, and we both found a lot of success. I was really hitting if I was betting under, if I was betting minus money, I was making sure that my return was a unit total. So I was putting a lot of heavy weight on the favorites that I bet on. But then for the parlays, putting those 1 units down, and Dominic, you were doing that. We all did. Not a single 3-leg parlay on here.
Yeah.
I mean,
we're learning. Dare I say, 6 months in.
What's funny is two of our 3 biggest unit-sized bets failed. The 2 units on Marquez.
That's true.
And 1.65 on the Ramos Chavez.
Which is unfortunate, of course.
It is unfortunate, but I think that just shows how well we really did when you take all the factors into place there. I'm very happy. I'm proud of us.
Yeah, I am, man. This was a week that we needed. We needed it so much for the confidence. we were in a dark place, guys. We were in a dark place, and to come out here, especially like to have success in parlays, money line parlays, and I call them variety parlays when you kind of dabble with kind of what you're putting in them to have success. Noah went 2-0 on those, man. So Noah had a huge week. I had a good week. We bounced back. Plus 3.35 is very solid. We have to continue to put it together consistently. By the end of the year, I think we got good things to recap on, Noah.
Yep, I completely agree, Dom. And now we're going to move on to our final segment in the show. Of course, it's closing statements. Now, join us on Thursday, where we will have a preview for 3 different cards this weekend. UFC, of course, will be back at the Apex, but a very important main event.
Oh, yeah.
How do you... Arman Tsarukyan? How do you pronounce that?
Tsarukyan.
Yeah, Tsarukyan. It's kind of how I say it. Versus Matos Gamrot.
Love that fight.
That's a great main event. We've already talked about that previously.
You guys have showed us some love, by the way, on YouTube for that discussion, by the way. So shout out to you guys for that.
I was happy to see a lot of people are behind that. But we'll be talking about that. Bellator 282, Gegard Mousasi defending his title against Johnny Eblen.
Yep.
And then the PFL, week 5, we got the heavyweights and the featherweights.
And Anthony Pettis.
Versus Stevie Ray. So a lot to go over this week, and I'm sure we'll have some fight announcements, some news, and everything in between. But Dominic, closing statements, this is the point of the show where we can talk about anything and everything, MMA related, not MMA related, and it just sends us off into the week. So any closing statements for this Father's Day edition?
Nothing crazy. I think I'll just double down on the Father's Day discussion for those of you with the father figures in your life, whether it be a dad, a grandpa, an uncle, whatever the case. Love on them. Show them some love. Show them you appreciate them. But yeah, I mean, enjoy the week, guys. We've got a lot coming on Thursday. Of course, as always, for your guys' support, we continue to grow. We continue to evolve and build this community. That's what I got. Some love to top off the episode.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm not even gonna follow that up because I got nothing. So
I love that.
I'm Noah Baker. That's Dominic Salee. We're the Below Average Joes, and we'll see you guys on Thursday.